pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll, please.
Trustee Pacoli?
Here.
Trustee Myson?
Yes.
Trustee Van de Kerkhoff?
Here.
Trustee Chandler?
Here.
Trustee Pridemore?
Here.
Trustee Hasiak?
Here.
President Dilbert?
Here.
Attorney McGrail?
Here.
Treasurer Whitsitt? Here. Clerk Guerrero?
Is that what you notice? Approval of agenda.
I got one request. I don't know if we want to, if we could just address it. No action requested at tonight's meeting, but I wanted to bring to attention a couple other properties that I hope that in the near future we can address and maybe get on the chopping block for demolition purposes. I don't know if you want to put that under yours, or I don't know if it's president items or.
We can just do it from the table, since there's no action.
Either. Well, I kind of want it just in the minutes though. So we can call from the table, but I'll just request for the record.
It's part of the record. Yes.
No, I just want the properties particularly in the minutes.
It's part of the record when you call from the table.
The addresses.
Could we,
I want the addresses in the minutes. I'll say for the record.
could we also add, just a clarification on Candace Miller's letter about the MIDD? I just need a clarification on something.
The letter talking about the mid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, so if we could add it under maybe new business, unfinished, no, yeah, new business. Mid information.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Been moved and supported, that we approve the agenda as amended. Question on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment on agenda. Approval of minutes, April 10th.
I have an amendment to make on it. Approval of agenda for last month, I was a nay vote, and it was marked all yeas.
For
The approval
all
of the
of the agenda. I have one other amendment for the medical marijuana issue. It was recorded in the minutes as an opinion, or no, their recommendation was offered. And as discussed, well, actually as discussed in the committee, and then also as brought up during the last month's meeting, it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't a recommendation, it was an opinion based off of these votes. So we just changed that word to.
What page are you reading from?
It was,
Page 3
page 3.
Page three.
Page 3?
at the bottom.
Page 3, item D.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, I see it. And so you're saying that was not a recommendation, it was an opinion of the committee?
Correct, yeah.
Is that what the conversation reflected?
It is, I had it pulled up to YouTube, I can pull it up again. Couple seconds.
I believe you.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Any others? Motion in order.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended.
Second.
Then moved and supported that the minutes of April 10th be approved as amended. Questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Then moved and supported that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Pacoli?
Yes.
Trustee Myson?
Yes.
Trustee Van de Kerkhoff?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Casey?
Yes.
Trustee Pridemore?
Yes.
President Dilbert?
Yes. President items. I'm a month late on this reappointment. There was Mrs. Bonkowski's term on the planning is up, and I'm recommending that we reappoint Tracy Bonkowski to the planning committee. And this term will run till 2020.
You need a motion, and you need a second.
Yes, I need a motion.
I make a motion to reappoint Tracy Bonkowski to the planning, committee.
Second.
Yeah, till 2020.
Did I hear support? Okay. It's been moved and supported that Tracy Bonkowski be reappointed to the planning commission with a term that will expire in 2020. Any questions on the motion?
Maybe a dumb question, but this is what she wants as well, right?
Yes, I asked her. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I don't
Dumb
reappoint
question,
it
but
up.
just to make sure.
Is there anything that says that we have to post the new opening? or-
No,
Okay, good.
no.
All right.
Any other questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Polly?
Yes.
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderkerkhoff?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Casey?
Yes.
Trustee Pridemore?
Yep.
President Dilbert?
Yes. The employee contract. The bottom line is the contract was renegotiated with the office staff and the DPW. And outside of just some basic language cleanup, we negotiated a 3% raise for the first year with a reopener in the second and the third year. And that was part of the budget that was presented back in January, February. The only addition to that is that we're, and the union has been notified already, is that we're gonna attach a alcohol and drug policy to the contract. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna adopt the U.S. Department of Transportation drug and alcohol policy, which allows us random testing. And in case of an incident, it allows us an immediate go get tested. So we need to make sure that we're covered. So that will be part of the contract. Any questions? I'll try to answer them.
So this is both clerical and DPW? DPW?
Yes.
Okay. There weren't any other changes to the contract that have a financial impact,
No,
like optical, dental?
No.
Okay.
no. No, we stood fast on, there was, I think the original request was 5, and 5 or something like that. And I said, there's no way that's gonna happen. So we settled on 3 with a reopener in the second and third year. There was no improvements to clothing, there was no improvements to, don't sit so far from me.
I can't see you then.
There was no improvements to any other,
No,
No increase in the contribution to the pension or?
No.
no,
No.
Okay.
no.
just salary.
All right.
The drug and alcohol policy, if that's continued to be negotiated, and that would have to be brought back, or is that?
It's pretty much, we're pretty much gonna adopt the Department of Transportation policy, which is pretty much the same one that MDOT uses.
So it'll be more of a policy and not CBA language, so we're not gonna vote on it.
You can do either way, you have to negotiate it with the
Yeah.
union. but it sounds like you-
And so we've had this conversation with the union, and they have no problem with us attaching this policy to the contract. It would just be attached as an amendment or,
Letter of understanding?
thank you, letter of understanding. Yeah, yeah.
They won't have to ratify it, right? Just letter of understanding?
It's part of
Or
the
you'd have to
contract.
ratify the new contract?
No, all the way.
Which they have. They've ratified the contract.
Okay.
But the letter of understanding, I'm not sure.
That can be negotiated anytime as long as all parties approve.
Right.
Yeah, the
Approve it.
bargaining committee just can agree to that.
Yeah.
Has there been any changes to hiring or firing, probationary period, or?
There was just some language cleanup because there was a paragraph that spelled out a probationary period of 90 days, and then 3 pages later, there was a paragraph that said the probationary period was 1 year. So we cleaned up all this language.
Is it 60 days now? I thought it was
1 year.
It's 1 year.
1 year?
1 year.
Oh, I wanted to ask you a question, and since it's already been negotiated, because it's kind of a moot point, they only get 1 week's vacation for 2 years of work?
There was some bad language in the contract that pertained to that also. That was,
After 1 year, you get 2 weeks. After 1 year, you get 2 weeks.
After 1 year?
Yeah.
Okay, because the copy I read said, you know, you worked in 2 years and you only get one week off. I thought that was kind of sad.
Well, they do get a whole bunch of holidays too.
Well, they get 13, well,
yeah.
that's standard though, I mean.
Exactly.
But working, you know, 2 years and only get 1 week off, it's like,
This is true.
but they marked
But
that
there
up.
was also a bad paragraph in there that said that they got 4 weeks after 6 years.
Ooh,
And so we cleaned up that language, it's 4 weeks after 20 years. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, so we cleaned up a lot of, and I think it was just typos and stuff, and in all honesty, Mr. Usordi was supposed to be handling all this, and he didn't get that.
Yeah, I think that's- Okay, I make a motion to approve a rate increase of 3% for clerical and DPW workers.
Second.
Been moved and supported that we approve the contract with a rate increase of 3% for clerical and DPW. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Pacoli?
Yes.
Trustee Myson?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderkerkhoff?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Hasiak?
Yes.
Trustee Pridemore?
Yes.
President Dilbert?
Yes. The 47-acre parcel, I just received an email.
We all did.
Huh?
We all did.
Yeah,
Okay. Did anybody get a chance to read it?
they, in summary, the cost of the development of the land proved to be too much, and they're actually withdrawing their bid entirely.
Okay. And we will move past that. Mr. DeHaan.
Hold on, before you move past that. What's next steps then?
True.
So do we relist it? How quickly can we put it on the market? How quick can you get it out? I mean, May is now real estate month, right? So, just out of curiosity.
We could find an agent and we can,
Did we have an agent prior to this?
no. No, they approached us.
They approached us, right?
Yeah, they approached us.
Was the sale of this land on the budget, or did we leave it off until it was final?
Oh, it's off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, we don't spend money before we receive it.
Okay, I was just making sure, because I remember we talked about it earlier when the budget was presented.
No. Mm-mm. No.
It is? It's
While
on
we're
the
talking
budget.
about that,
It's on the budget?
She's saying it's on the budget.
It's on the budget.
is it?
Anticipated revenue.
Yeah, it was anticipated revenue. It's anticipated revenue. We can do a budget.
Anticipated.
Yes, we
Okay.
can do a budget when I get it off.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. There's 2 other parcels that I would like to, I'm gonna bring this up on the table since we're talking about vacant land. There's 2 other parcels that the village owns that are buildable lots that we may want to also put on the market. There's a lot on Haven Ridge, north of Prospect, and there's a lot on Luke Street, 2 lots north, 2 lots west of Lions Hall,
Vacant property?
vacant property.
That one's just like a one-house lot.
Yeah.
The Lutz one.
And the Haven Ridge is just a single family, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Should they go to put it on the market, put it on the market, or what?
I mean, we're just cutting the grass, so
Yeah.
it's, You know, I mean, there may be that person that just needs a lot that wants to go to a single family house on. You know?
I think we need to look at, if we do go with an agent, obviously it's commercial agent, right? So is that still 6%?
We can negotiate that down.
That's what
Yeah.
my point was gonna be, to negotiate.
I've never paid more than 5%. And I try to get them at 4 when I do my own personal stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we'd have to get appraisals for them, right?
Not to sell. Those come when you sell it.
Yeah.
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 Do we have a rough idea?
We can
Just go
use,
with what the realtor says?
there's comparables out there that we could, I mean, I don't wanna waste, $1,000 on an appraisal for a $5,000 lot.
Sure, sure.
you know. So with your authorization, I will proceed to put this on the market.
And then before we sell, it comes back to council, you feel?
Oh, it has to,
Okay.
yeah, it has to.
I make a motion to put the village-owned properties from Lutz and Haven Ridge on the market,
And Clark Street?
And the 47.
and the 47 acre on Clark Street on the market to pay the realtor no more than 5%.
I think you just give him authorization to negotiate. I
I
don't
can
think you.
negotiate.
President Dilbert the authority to negotiate the cost of sales.
Did I hear support for that?
Support.
It's been properly moved and supported that we list these 3 named properties for sale. And we will contact a couple real estate agents and see who we can get the best deal with. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Pacoli?
Yes.
Trustee Meisen?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderkerkhoff?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Hayesiak?
Yes.
Trustee Pridemore?
Yes.
President Dilbert?
Yes. Mr. DeHaan. And I'm gonna start this conversation. We've been, trying to close out the DVM, which is our, Saw Grant project. And we've been trying to close the stormwater project. And this has been taking way too long. We've met more than enough times. There's been enough reasons and excuses to write a small book on. So as always, I ask Tom to come to the meeting. I'm hoping and I'm sure that someone around this table has questions as to why these projects have not been closed out. One of the issues that we're running into, because this is now carried over into a new fiscal year, and now that we've closed them out, we have to reach back and make the adjustments in the prior year. And the DVM project was completed.
The actual construction?
The actual work,
I think it was November,
okay,
maybe late October.
okay, and now we're into May, and we still haven't closed this out. Okay, and so I want Mr. DeHaan to tell us what's taking so long.
And I'd say I'm not trying to make excuses, but you're correct, we did have the, DVM, the portion of the grant project, what they were responsible for was to clean and televise all the existing storm sewer 20 years and older. And I guess even back in November, there were some, we had to, once the work was done, there were questions on the quantities that needed to be resolved. And there was also some questions on the crew days. And so we had asked for a response back, and this was as far back as November, from DVM to some questions we had. And I think it was actually sometime in February or March until we got a response back to the questions that we had. And one of the other things is that when they did prepare a response, they did also ask for an extra of, I think it was around $70,000 that
Yes.
they had asked for. And then the other thing that they were over on their crew days substantially. And I think part of the issue with even the crew days and some of the work is I don't think they really realized how bad and how full of dirt and things the system was. But we, after meeting with them with regard to the change order request, that was basically denied. What the main thing on that was they wanted to be paid $300 per manhole for extra cleaning, and there were like 223 manholes, and that was included in the standard price for the line, so that was denied, and then they had another request. We did agree to pay some additional crew day requests, and at the same time, President Dilbert and Fazal Khan spoke, and I guess the end result of that conversation was that the village was only going to be responsible for what was the 10% under the grant. And so Fazal Khan, I guess, in effect agreed to pick up some of the crew days also so that we could make that whole. But that, and I'd say that's, so at this point, we get the award for final payment is on the agenda tonight. And I guess the last thing I was waiting for is they had some reports, and it was just a question of getting the index in for the reports, and that probably was about a month before we got that in from DVM. So, some of it may sound like excuses, but I think a lot of it was delays on their part. So the remaining portion that still needs to be done is based on the with the reports. They did recommendations or ratings on the storm sewer system in place, and we last week I met with Marcus to go over those, because what we still need to do as part of the report is to do like an analysis of what, I mean, there's some significant repairs that need to be made. So we're preparing a report that analyzes those and what wants to be the priority. And once that report is made, and the village will have to make some decisions, financially or otherwise, as to how they're going to proceed with these repairs. And that, in effect, was, I guess, one of the main parts of the grant was to make, townships and cities and villages aware of what their infrastructure was, and instead of just letting going on, make long-range plans to address that infrastructure. So, and I guess the other things in regards to the grant, there was, in addition to the DVM contract, some of the other things that were done under that, all of the public manholes in the city were inspected. That's the 20-year-old and larger, inspected and rated. We also purchased over $20,000 in hardware and software that's like for DPW and finance to work together on that. We also mapped and GPSed all the manholes, because before we started this project, the maps in the city storm sewer were virtually nil. So there's been, I guess, a lot of work done on this, and I would expect in the next 30 days, plus or minus, to have that report finished and submitted.
Okay. Just so council knows, the original cost that came in at the end exceeded the grant, and I flat out refused to pay it. And I informed Fazal Khan and DVM, I don't care how you guys divvy it up, we're not going to exceed the grant. Our original estimates did not exceed the grant, and because of all the change orders, we're still not going to exceed the grant. And Tom is correct that in his report, will identify the worst to best manholes and catch basins, and so that's what we're currently waiting on, and then this council will have to decide how we're going to, attack those. But the important thing for me right now is to get that final report let's finish paying everybody, not to exceed the grant. And then we will decide, how we're gonna, make necessary repairs. So, thank you on that one.
Yeah, just one point on that. On that contract, there were no change orders. The big issue was the crew days because the contractor spent a lot more time, and I guess in order to get it settled, that's where, I guess when you and Fossil discussed it, he agreed to, he didn't want to argue any further with DVM about the crew days, so he just ate some of the crew days is what he did.
What was the discrepancy? I mean, how many days did they bid for, and then how many days did they go over?
I think Fossil ended up, it was like 30 days over, which comes out to be around $15,000. And I mean, some days, looking at the reports, there were days out there that they worked, like a crew day inspection for one day is $480. They had $500 worth of work because, they go in, set up, and this was this bad. And there was this, we had a 48-inch storm sewer, a good section that it was like 90% full of dirt and mud and things like that. So you can, and I'd say I don't think they actually performed pretty well. I just don't think they really knew how bad the system was, and they didn't, because they bid the number of crew days they think they're going to complete the work.
Right.
And I don't think they realized how long it was going to take them to finish it.
Well, in addition to the crew days, you said that they wanted to charge us $300 per manhole, right? And that's $70,000.
We told them no.
Okay.
Like that was part of the original contract.
We said, that's, if you go to the specifications, that includes, that goes with cleaning the pipe. They had a per foot on the pipe, and that included the manholes when they. And
I
that
can't
was,
imagine
that was
our
one,
municipality is like the only one that has a struggle with manhole covers, right? I mean, you gotta go to other municipalities and you're gonna get some of the issues,
Right.
same issues, like,
Same issue.
that one's.
well, that was what they were saying, because the system was so bad, they had to spend more time cleaning the sumps and the manholes in addition to the pipes. So.
I mean, I guess that's my question. If that's the case, what other issues do we have if it's that much worse than another municipality? And I mean, I guess I would look at Marcus and think, yeah. I mean, that's kind of my point. Is right.
I think that the issue is it's maintenance, and you have to remember the pipes that we televised and inspected were all over 20 years old, and probably most of them were probably closer to 40, and they're
Or older.
So even with the mapping, this is just a small point, but one of our people in the office was going to a historical site, and he found there was an old map in New Haven storm sewer system on it, which was better than a lot of the records we had here, and that was on the historical site. So, I think this grant's done a whole lot for, even with regards to the mapping and GPSing and all that type of thing, and say it's going to cost the village, when it's all said and done, about $35,000, but there's been a whole lot of work done.
Yeah, no, I'm not discounting the fact that we mapped it and we put the GPS system on it. I mean, that makes a heck of a lot of difference. I totally understand. It's just, if it's in the condition they're saying it's in, I guess that's, it seems like it's in a little bit of an exaggeration.
Well, we rated it 5, we rated the line from 5 to down to 1, depending on the condition. And there's some bad lines, but I think a lot of it was just like overfilled with dirt and things like that. Sediment. And over the years, you're gonna get that.
Oh, for sure.
Or is there any sign that some of these that were really filled with dirt are going to continue to fill at that rate, like unexpectedly more full than?
Well, there's some that Marcus, when we met, we talked about as to, some of them you can see that like they have reverse slope on it or something like that, and if that happens, then, they're liable to fill up again, so that's all part of this analysis. And, and I guess the other thing, even when you do the reports, there could be a 12-inch line that's in bad shape, or you could have a 48-inch line that's in bad shape. So you have to determine which is more critical. If the 12-inch goes, You know, it's not a big deal. In fact, on Carl Street, there's one of the lines we couldn't even televise because it was totally full, but there we couldn't even get the lines in it. But if that goes, so that's been operating that way for who knows how long, but there's also, you know, if there's a pipe, say, a 48 that is in danger of collapsing or something like that, that's a lot more critical than the 12. So that those are things that we have to kind of look at with this report and then kind of take it from there.
Okay.
And DVM, that was the company that did the televising thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we have all this on video on this.
Right, it's all videoed, and we have, Marcus has a copy of that, it's on a hard drive, and then we also have hard copies of the reports with photos of everything also.
Okay, any other questions on this issue?
So we'll have an update next month?
I guess this will pressure me to keep going. But yeah, we just got the final payment. I was able to meet with Marcus last week, so I'm working on it. I'm probably about a third done with the report right now.
Well, the next issue is STE paving and drainage. This is another one that I've seen enough fingers pointing to.
Bigger one.
We just, last week we had to fix a water main leak on Haven Ridge, which we haven't concluded, but we suspect was created when they did excavation at Haven Ridge and Division. The storm sewer goes under the main, so they had to go past the main, and we think the main was hit during the excavation. And eventually this leak made its way to the surface, because when it's been dry for 2 weeks and I see water going down the shoulder of the road, you know. So they got on it, and they got the contractors out there. They got STE, and they got the sub that STE had brought in to do this portion. And with Tom and Samed, Marcus, I even stopped by just to see what a hole looks like. And so they got it fixed. It was a one-day fix. But here's another project that there's change orders that have been submitted that are close to 2 years old now. The project started on on Delaney, Pasco, and Health. And that was the original part of the project. And now we're getting change orders for work that was 18 to 24 months old, okay? And there's constant change orders. There's a drainage issue on Health. The pavement is either too high or something's not working over there. When it rains, Health floods. I gave Tom a couple weeks ago some pictures on Division. And I've been here all my life, and Division was always a nice flat street, and the driveways were always just minimum grade. Now I got driveways that are like this, and I got the street going, okay? And the asphalt work looks like crap, okay? And when it rains, the water cannot get to the catch basins. You gotta literally have 3 inches of rain on the road before it gets to the catch basin. There's an issue with the paving contractor, there's an issue with the original contractor. It's been brought to my attention that the sub has not been paid. While we are still holding, how much money, Sandy?
I don't know.
It's over 100,000.
Okay, so and if this is another issue that I instructed Sandy, no one gets paid until it's resolved. It's corrected to our satisfaction. Okay? And at some point, and I've had a conversation with Mr. Addis, and at some point, we gotta drag them both into court, and that's what we'll do. because personally, I think the workmanship is shoddy. I mean, even though we got a 2-year warranty, we got failures already. Okay?
Even Main Street has a couple bumps where it didn't before, doesn't it? On the west side of the tracks.
I don't know
Um,
if that was part of, like I said, when it rains, division, like I said, if you were a duck, you'd be happy.
We're making a list of all of the faults that we're finding with the workmanship.
Oh, we're keeping track of everything.
Are we asking for responses?
We go through Tom, and Tom is trying to address them with STE and STE. You know that, you point to one finger, but of course there's 3 pointing back at you, that's STE.
Okay, are we talking to STE directly?
No, I take that back. They do meet with us,
Okay.
with the engineers.
Would there be a problem with the starting a trail documentation,
I'm sure we have all
We
documentation.
have,
Should be a
I mean, this,
including the response from STE?
Oh, we have emails galore, trust me.
I haven't thrown away an email on the scout since
Yeah.
it started. In
We have
fact,
more.
Marcus and Chris has been copied on almost every email we have. Every meeting that I have with STE, Marcus is there, just so we both know what's going on, so there's no miscommunication as to exactly what's been happening. I guess just a few things on that. I know Chris mentioned about the drives being really steep, but I think I guess I don't necessarily agree with that. If you look at what we have at, for instance, at the Pantry site compared to what that used to be, how those drives were so steep in that before, and we have videos, it's so much improved over what it was before. There are issues with the asphalt, and Marcus and I met with STE and the asphalt contractor right now, and we're taking, Fossil is taking some elevations on the pavement to see what we can do to resolve that. But part of that, when he paved it, he didn't have the proper crown on, and he was supposed to notify, people when he was supposed to come and do a repair. He came in on a Saturday afternoon, never told anybody, and it's worse than it was before. So even if we were to settle everything else until we get the payment issue settled, I think even at previous meetings, I said we were probably going to hold at least $20,000 to make sure that the asphalt was taken care of. One of the other things on Hilt, Marcus and I went over with the contractor there, and part of that, I mean, originally, we had talked when we did the initial design on that about running this 12-inch storm sewer up because there was water sitting like in the fields behind there, but actually due to budget constraints, that line was never built. So it's not something that, like the village wasted money. I guess it's something that can always be done. The other thing we noticed when we were out there, that there's the one property owner filled the one lot, which is basically blocking a lot of the ditch drainage, which is resulting in some of the water being backed up onto the road. So that, I guess there's a landscape business there, Marcus, that's what you were saying. So that's part of the issue on Hill Street. With regards to, I guess, and everything else has been completed on the project. The contractor was in Monday and Tuesday doing the final touch-up on the restoration. Chris is right that the contractor, I don't know, it was probably a couple months ago, maybe even a little longer. He submitted a request for extras on Delaney, Pasco, and Hill, which were more like after the fact, and they were substantial numbers. And then we've talked to him about it. There's some issues on crew days, but I guess, and I talked this over with Chris, part of the issue is there is, you can settle the contract, you can do that, just give STE anything he wants. But I guess I'm not willing to do that, and that's even on all the other change orders, and Marcus can attest to this. We haven't been giving, STE asked for a lot of things, and we're not giving him, everything he asked for, and this is another case of that. So we do have a meeting scheduled on Friday to hopefully to resolve this, and say he has some issues with crew days also. But, it's, it's easy to say resolve it, but I guess I can make a recommendation as to what I think he should be paid, but if he doesn't agree, then where does that end? So I guess that's maybe where we'll see how it goes on Friday. But that's
Just
kind
so
of
you
the
know.
point where, because I spent a lot of time doing this, and trying to take care of the village's interest and negotiating with Franklin. We sit there for full days going over things.
Just so council know, we don't make a payment until we get a, letter from Father Khan recommending payment, and what the amount should be. So we never pay out until we get a recommendation.
So I could say, I guess that's part of it. I'm not willing to recommend that he be paid for things I just don't think he deserves.
Has he completed the original scope of the original work he was contracted to do?
Yes, all the work is done,
Okay, so. was there
other than
any-
the repairs on the asphalt.
Okay, so we're doing repairs after the fact.
Well, he
Repairs that
hasn't been,
he
he
caused
hasn't been
issues.
paid for the asphalt work because it was defective. He hasn't been
Right.
paid for that.
Okay, but he finished the scope of the original project, correct?
Yes.
Is there a reason why we're not terminating him, going after him in court, and hiring somebody else to fix up his mess?
This is a conversation that I had with Mr. Addis, and so we're gonna have this conversation to see if we can do that legally.
I mean, this sounds like a never-ending,
Because one of the issues that we're running into is that the asphalt contractor, the company that he actually got the asphalt from, now they're sending us a bill. Okay, and of course, we're not paying it. The subcontractor that was brought in has now made a bond claim to the bonding company,
Why wouldn't we do the same?
okay?
Why wouldn't we make a claim towards the
But
bond?
we, we attempted that.
We didn't, but we didn't go through with it. Remember, we decided in good faith
Well, it
to
was,
back up, right?
well, kind of, but we were also having a lot of difficulty with the bonding company.
Yeah.
Like from a communication standpoint,
No,
answering standpoint?
just that they wouldn't back up the bond.
Went back.
I mean, it was more, I think, I don't know if the attorney was from O'Reilly's office or whoever it was, but
Went back to him.
we went back and forth with them for 2 or 3 months, trying
What's
to get
the
the bonding
point of a
company to
bond?
step in.
Exactly, what's the point of a bond then?
at some point, we're gonna have to say enough.
Well, that's to say, hopefully, if we can work something out Friday. No, I've had,
Because I even asked the question, can we not pay the sub who has done the work? And he's owed close to $50,000. But, my issue with paying him directly is that that's part of a payment. Because STE was the original contractor, we pay him, and then he pays the subs. And right now, he's not paying the subs.
and part of that is says he has claims against the subs for work that he's done, so I guess,
So this back and forth can go on until hell freezes over. And we need to bring it to a conclusion some way, somehow.
I mean, in regards to that, if our contract is SDE, that's who we deal with, the subcontractors, just to be frank, it's their problem. to deal
Yeah,
with SDE,
so
not
that's
ours.
the problem.
So
Yeah.
I don't think we should be paying a sub.
I'm just gonna be blunt. I hope that next month we have something on the agenda going to closed session and we get a lawsuit going against
Well,
STE, whatever files them.
We have to make sure that we have a fight that we can win.
Sure.
Okay?
But we're starting a paper trail, keeping documentation, so we
Yes,
do know that
yes.
we're getting,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. John? Thanks, Tom. Cement.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President.
council know that we received bids on May 1st for Clark Street rehabilitation project. We have 3 responsive bids, Florence Cement, James P. Contracting, and Paymar. Our estimate was 300. The bids came in at 267, 893, 273, 655, and 287 and 71. And same order, Florence, James P., Paymar. Then there was an option discussed at the pre-award meeting. We met with all 3. If we could close the street down, what would that reduce the project scope? So the totals were corrected for 2 out of 3. The low bidder stays the same as 267, 893. James P., that's for Florence. James P. went down to 268, 783, and Paymar 283, 591. So we had a little bit of a saving over there. Now Marks and I, Mr. President, Dilbert, met with 2 low bidders. We wanted to make sure that they understand what they're dealing with, the scope of work and the schedule, all that. Florence and James P., they understand fully, and they're 2 good contractors. We've dealt with them over the years. Both are capable. They're within $800 with each other. So at this point, we are recommending the low bidder, Florence Cement, to be awarded the Clark Street rehab. That would be the corrected number for $267,893 even. 267,893.
Did we tell them a parameter to finish the project in, or did they also put that in the bid as to what it would take?
No, they gave us 25 days to finish.
All 3?
Florence, 25 days. James P. I'm sorry, 27 days on Florence. James P. 25 and Paymar 20 days. Those were the corrected numbers with the full closure. Local traffic will be allowed, but full closure to through traffic,
Florence, was that 27?
27.
And you've worked with them before, no problems with deadlines or quality of work or?
3 good companies, very qualified.
And if we award the contract, I mean, what's an expected start date?
We were shooting for June 1st, and we talked to Florence and James P. They both agree that sometime after Memorial Day they will mobilize. We do need some time to, after council approves, if we move forward, to prepare the contract documents, collect all the insurance and bonds, check their ratings and all that, and then bring it back to the president for execution. Then they have 10 days for mobilization. So we're right there.
And Paymar realizes our ordinances are different now, right?
Everybody does.
Okay.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Just wanted to make sure.
So if you said that it's got to come back to council, wouldn't that put it in?
No. If council approves it tonight, we will prepare the contract documents for execution, and only needs the president's signature. We will check everything and recommend execution back to the president.
I make a motion to approve the Clark Street rehabilitation utilizing the Florence firm in the amount of $267,000, was it 800?
$893.
$893.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we award the Clark Street rehab to Florence P.
Florence Cement.
Florence Cement.
Can I modify the motion? Conditional upon receiving acceptable bonds and insurance.
Conditioned on receiving acceptable bonds and insurance.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Pacoli?
Yes.
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderkerkhoff?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Pasiak?
Yes.
Trustee Prymore?
Yes.
President Dilbert?
Yes.
Could I ask who seconded that?
3 people.
Yeah.
Just put my name down.
Next item.
On May 1st, also, at the end of the day, at 5 PM, we received one bid for the...
First of all, time out.
I'm sorry.
Stop for a minute. We invited some contractors out to the old funeral home. So, just so everyone knows. And, 4,
We invited 4 contractors. 3 showed up to the, on Friday, before the bid opening. We explained the scope on the funeral home. We showed them the property, we showed them the structure. We explained to them that this is pending on, well, we're waiting on a court order to access the property, but we need to demo and remove all that debris. I'm sorry.
come on.
So we requested bids from all 4. Only one came back, Blue Star Inc. That was in May 1st at 507. The base bid was $7,700 even. 7700. And then there's a $5,000 asbestos survey allowance. 5,000 even. Which basically, this demo contractor will hire an environmental engineer to gain access to the property, make sure that there are no asbestos that we have to deal with, because that changed the whole scope of work. 5,000 is kind of high, but it's just an allowance. It will be based on actual cost. Again, we explained to them that we don't have access to the property until we receive that court order. And based on the survey, we will know the schedule. But there's only one bid that we received. We worked with Blue Star on a couple of other projects before, and they're good contractor.
Now, the work that we asked was just the back portion of the funeral home, the garage and back in the day, that was a casket viewing area. So the 2-story structure would stay, which is that back.
The part that collapsed?
I'm sorry.
Is that the part that collapsed?
The part that actually collapsed, plus the 1-story part that attaches to the actual building.
Is there a reason why we're leaving the 2-story structure?
We don't know I guess we don't know what the court's gonna allow us to do. Personally, I think the 2-story is salvageable. We would love, this building could possibly come up on a tax sale really soon. And I know there are some parties out there that are interested in it. Personally, I would like to see it saved. If someone is willing to take the time and effort and money to, rehab it, and because I know one guy was talking about a duplex, 2-family flat, and I know the upper level was a living quarters for the original family.
And that's structurally sound?
Well, we won't know until we get into it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On the exterior, there is no damage to the
Gotcha,
exterior.
okay.
Only the back area.
Had any contact with the owner?
We've tried to contact the owner. I called him. He left me a message. I returned his call. He won't answer. We sent the sheriff department over there to do a wellness check. The building has no utilities that are operating. Hasn't had water since 15. There's no electro service, no gas service. There was a vehicle. There's 3 vehicles parked there. There was a 4th vehicle that has now moved about 2 weeks ago. So we think he's living there, in and out. Yeah. And the sheriffs can't force their way in until they get a court order, and that's what we're waiting on.
Where are we with that, with the court? Do we have a court date?
We were actually in court on April 30th, if I'm not mistaken, 2 Mondays ago. The judge postponed that hearing to May 21st, wanted us to tack again at the funeral home as well as the progress in Port Huron. So we're hoping to get some more information before the next board meeting.
The $5,000 asbestos, that's just to hire the professional to do the that's not actually if there's remediation involved, that's just to hire them?
Correct. It'll be lower than that, we're pretty sure. But they have to be conservative with their numbers, just in case.
And we get to see that what they build before we say, okay, fine, yeah, that's a reasonable number.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah, that's how allowance works.
So all said and done, it's 12,700?
Potentially.
Potentially.
Potential.
Maximum.
And this
It's
will be
actually
paid for.
7,700 plus the actual cost of the service.
And there was money left over in our demolition budget from a year ago, 2 years ago. So this would be paid for, and then we would, of course, put a lien on the property to recoup our money. But of course, nothing happens until we get a court order. So I think all we're asking for tonight is approval, so that when that order does come through, then we can proceed.
Yes, if you receive council approval, then it's merely the president's signature on the proposal, and they can mobilize. But again, this recommendation would be conditional upon receiving court order, acceptable bonds and insurance.
A motion to move forward with Blue Star Inc., conditional on the court order, acceptable bonds and insurance, with the amount of, should we say the amounts, or? Yeah. The amounts of $7,700 and a $5,000 asbestos allowance.
Second.
The property moved and supported. That, you heard the motion, Mrs. Roddick?
Yes.
Could I request just in the minutes, whatever, just so there's no confusion or that we are just doing the back portion, that it be particularly noted in the minutes?
Did.
Question on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Burkholdy?
Yes.
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderkerkhoff?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Hasiak?
Yes.
Trustee Pridemore?
Yes.
President Dilbert?
Yes.
Thank you.
You may have received, well, you may not have received. We mailed out the sidewalk replacement literature a week ago.
This is the.
And so you may or may not have received them, because if you lived in Decorah, Pembroke, or Amherst, you probably didn't get one,
Correct.
right?
They were excluded from that.
So that process has been started. So we mailed out the brochures and informing the residents. And the DPW is gonna schedule a market. You guys haven't started marking yet, have you? Yeah. So in the near future, they'll be going out with their orange paint, marking the bad slabs and sections and whatnot. And the residents will be given an opportunity to make their own repairs. We created a no-fee permit. And typically, these don't require a permit. So what we're doing is we have a no-fee permit, which is we want them to come in and pull this permit saying, I'm doing my own, and it's a way that we can keep track of it and see who did the work, so that if and when we go out with a contractor to do the balance of the work, we want to make sure that the contractor, the work they did and the work that the resident, don't cross. So, hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll get these sidewalks marked, because we know there's some bad sections and there's some not so bad sections. A lot of Main Street was replaced when they did the water project. But there's some areas that need some work, so we need to get on top of it and start this and get these walking paths corrected.
The mailer that we have in our packet that went out, the flyer, or brochure, was that sent to everybody, or was that just to the ones that actually have sidewalks that are?
It was sent to everyone with the
Well,
exception
Right,
of Decorah, Pembroke, Amherst.
okay. So the residents that received it necessarily might not have to need their sidewalk to be repaired?
No, unless they see an orange mark out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's just informing the whole village
Yeah.
that, this program is starting. And like I said, when the DPW get out there to actually make the marks based on village ordinance. Yeah.
And this is the flyer that was already sent out, the one that we had in our meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's just an FYI. Any questions on that?
Have we gotten a lot of calls from folks that have received the flyer? Do we know?
This went out Monday, yesterday.
Oh,
There was a few residents who were already inquired about, what to do with business hours and stuff.
okay. Yeah, just reading the flyer over it, the way that it reads, it actually reads as if your property, it actually says during recent inspection, village inspectors found certain sections of the sidewalk abutting your property to be need of replacement. So if they're receiving if this went out to everybody other than the Decorah Park, the subdivisions, they might interpret it that their property's already been identified.
I think it also talks about the orange paint or it talks about the markings in there.
Okay.
So,
We're ready to field calls. We are ready to field calls.
yes, yes. Okay, payment of bills.
I actually made a mistake. When you guys were talking about DVM, I looked for some reason and I put the wrong amount. So the actual number, I had $122 for DVM. The actual amount was $49,000. So the payment of bills for May is $252,299.09.
Wait, we're supposed to pay them?
Sure.
No.
Yeah.
49,000, I'm saying.
It's
DVM.
49,000, yeah.
We're not withholding that.
No,
Not
that's DVM.
DVM.
So that's, okay.
That's the solid.
Yeah.
That project is coming to an end.
We're just waiting for the reports.
Yes.
Yes.
But that's not part of the contract.
That's not part of it.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's the other subcontract on the STE project. It's also-
Yeah, the STE does not have anything in here.
So, sorry, what was the new number, 252?
252, 299.09.
I make a motion to approve the payment of bills in the amount of $252,299.09.
Support.
Been properly moved and supported that we pay the bills in the amount of $252,299.09. Questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Polly?
Yes.
Trustee Meissen?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderpump?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Hacia?
Yes.
Trustee Prymore?
Yes.
President Dilbert?
Yes.
And on a quick side note, I will have to transfer money from Michigan Schools and Government Credit Union to Chase to cover these bills. I'll give you guys all that, copies of all that, jazz next month when I do it.
We don't have a recent reimbursement from, for the SAW grant. Have we submitted one lately?
Not recently, because there hasn't been a lot of expenses we can do when, now that we pay this.
Well, should we wait until,
That's what I was going to do, but if you wanted to do one earlier, we could.
no, let's get it all finalized so we can make that last submittal. You see the item You see the note about the agenda items for June. Treasury report.
Total village assets were $2,394,538.71.
Make a motion to receive and file the treasurer's report.
And properly moved and supported that we receive and file the treasury report. Any question on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unfinished business.